what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it. Let's get to some Kelly comments as he addressed the media yesterday. And it's game week, baby. It's that time. Real quick, because this is something that Brian Kelly has always done. But now, is this official, Jake? The SEC is requiring injury reports now? Kelly already did it voluntarily last year. I know they were considering it.
Yeah, I don't know if that ever
they
got pushed through
or not.
either. No.
Okay. Well, here's an injury report from week one.
You know, we have one guy that is questionable, and that's Chris Hilton. He has a bone bruise. He is working through that process. Probable would be Frazier, our offensive guard. Those are the two right now that would show up on our injury report.
Okay, so good news on the Frazier front, though they have been trying to develop Tyree Adams as quickly as possible to be that sixth swing man. But you definitely don't want to enter this with missing one of your stalwart offensive linemen. Like if you were telling me you can have either Frazier or Hilton, I'd take Frazier. And that's
sure.
that's no slight to Hilton, but you have talent there. Like you go very young.
Yeah.
Like the drop off in experience going from Frazier to Adams is extreme. Yeah. Here is Kelly too, just an overall overview of the SC Trojans.
You know, we've got to do a great job in making them one-dimensional. If they are balanced offensively, they are very difficult to defend. We've got to limit some of the big plays. Zachariah Branch is an electrifying offensive player. We've got to be able to tackle him, not only offensively, but in special teams. And then obviously prepare for a defense that we're not really certain about because they have so many new players on defense. You know, we know the structure. You know, we know that, from a defensive standpoint, they bring in a lot of talented players. Coach Lynn, coming over from UCLA, did a great job, and he will impact that defense as well. So, we've got our hands full.
Jake, Coach Kelly also falling prey to the Zachariah Branch groupthink, going out of his way to mention him. It's, again, we
going to be a starter on the team, yeah.
It's a bit perplexing statistically, but maybe they're thinking this is going to be a burst out type of game.
Look, he's a track guy. He's on Bruce Feldman's freak list because he's only 175 pounds, but apparently in the weight room he's a monster. Like, I get all of that, but the stats just don't match up right now with the conversation. Not to say that they can't, but they didn't a year ago.
When we cut audio, rightfully, we do not include the questions. I was at the press conference. The person asked about Zachariah Branch. Like they said players such as Zachariah Branch.
Good job, Tay. How about this is Kelly 7. What's it like preparing for a first-year starter in Miller Moss?
You're really taking a lot of, what they did in the bowl game because, you've got a couple of weeks to prepare, right? And they had some time to really kind of settle in on what they felt his comfort level is. Now he's grown from there. He's had a spring practice and he's had, another 2.5 weeks. So, there's going to be more to the offense. But, you're going to take what Coach Riley has been successful with, and then you're going to look at their offensive structure and certainly begin to build your plan accordingly.
Wait, sorry, I got a bit distracted. Oh, okay, I want because there's some more USC ones that I want to get to here. So Brian Kelly he's never played Lincoln Riley, but he is 8-3 against the Trojans in his time. Here's Kelly 19. He was asked, are there any similarities with this SC team to teams you faced in the past?
The 2019, 20, 21 version of USC was built on the air raid as well. So there's some similarities, from that perspective. Lincoln Riley is a great play caller. So, I'm not here to argue who's a better play caller, but there were similarities in terms of what they were trying to do offensively. So that's why the transition in terms of what they went to offensively was pretty seamless. Pretty similar there, but you're going to get outstanding skill players on the field. You're going to get players that on both sides of the ball, to your naked eye, you're going to go, that looks like an SEC player, and that's what we'll get on Sunday.
It's a very good point, Jake, in that SC's strength, even if you think back to 2 years ago, right, when the Alex Grinch defense still sucked, but they went 11-1 because they forced a lot of turnovers,
They
right?
did, yeah.
They had a lot of turnover luck, but a lot of that because they had good DBs. Like USC is strong at these skill positions. They remain that. Even in all of the down years, they've kind of kept that. That's the only place where they seem to send guys to the NFL. That's why the trenches become even more important because that's where they're supposed to be weak. And if you can't exploit them there, big on big, then that's going to be a recipe for a bad night in Vegas.
I know, I think so as well. You're going to, like he said, like you're going to see corners and safeties and receivers and tight ends and maybe not running backs. This group, I think, for USC was better a year ago than it is this year. I do think Woody Marks has a skill set, but, I mean, Lloyd was somebody that, I mean, we saw him tear up the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
But
Travis Dye was a beast 2 years
ago.
For
for the most part, yeah, the skill guys could play in any league. And it's always been up front for USC, certainly, since Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll had Cedric Ellis and a couple of Jimmys and Joes up front, and that's what made them kind of separate themselves from the rest of the Pac-10 at the time. But now it's like up front is something where going to a league where you got to be good up front in the Big Ten, that's why I'm not as high on USC in the league, is because, yeah, you can match up on the outside. You can have success. Even your stats, like the turnovers can go up and be top in the league. But can you get leaned on by Iowa, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, those teams?
Well, LSU will show. Will give us our first taste of that, whether or not they can hold up. One thing about USC is, like LSU, they completely remake their defense. Instead of Blake Baker, it's D'Anton Lynn. Like LSU, though, Lynn coming over from UCLA. I mean, LSU goes to Mizzou, an in-conference team, to find their DC. UCLA last season, maybe a bit ironically, Chip Kelly's offense, not the strength of the team, not that good. The defense was pretty damn salty, hence why they went after Lynn. This is Kelly 16 on what stands out about Lynn's defense.
Very active, play a lot of man coverage, a very similar scheme in terms of getting after people. And so I just think a very aggressive defensively. There's different ways, right, to attack people. And I think Coach Lynn did a great job of looking at matchups, utilizing his personnel in a great way at UCLA. And he's probably going to do the same thing here with the new personnel that he has. And so he's got a new staff as well. He's got some outstanding staff members that they've assembled, defensive line, linebackers, secondary. So we just have to be prepared, to handle, 3 down, 4 down pressures, all of those things.
And Jake, what if you were to game plan this LSU team? Now, maybe this is a bit tough because we haven't seen these receivers really too much in live action here. But with what Cortez Hankton has built the last couple of years, I would think trying to man up LSU would be advantage LSU. Now they got to prove it, and if they can't, well then maybe USC can do exactly what they want. But like if I hear you're going to try to man me up, I say okay, I'll take that bet, bring it on. I'll trust Kyron Lacey and CJ Daniels and company to try to get open for Garrett Nussmeier in those one-on-one battles.
Yeah, look, you can't be a place like LSU and not invite man coverage. You've had, we could go through the list of receiver after receiver, even when you were running horn boss every single play, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, like you still had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Reuben Randall. So you've always had receivers, and we don't know these receivers like we knew the ones from a year ago, but still, like we've seen Kyron Lacey, have 600 yards in the SEC. We assume he's going to make, that jump to be receiver one. We've seen Daniels at a lower level be 1,000-yard receiver. Like we have seen them, just not where they're currently going to be counted on, but you have to just lean on the experience and past history of LSU receivers. Man coverage, sign me up for all of that. And when I went to practice on Friday, that's kind of, they did a drill. It was red zone. There was a lot of man coverage, and Kyron Lacey was getting open almost every single time because of his routes, not because of the defense, right? So I'm sure he invites man coverage. I don't assume that LSU is going to see a lot of it, and if they do, it would be maybe a one series, we can't do that type deal. Because if USC has man coverage and it's working, LSU might be cooked.
Yeah, for sure. That would be a very, very bad omen. What defines, this is Kelly 10, Aladra, what defines success for this defensive line?
Do your job. This isn't that hard. They're physically strong enough to do their job, and I think Bo Davis has done a really good job of just focusing in on the technical pieces that they need to accomplish. And, if you're shade, play your shade. If you're 3, play your 3. Let's do our job up front. I think we're talented at linebacker. I think we're talented off the edges. I think we're talented that we can get to our spots. We just need to do our jobs up front. And if we do that, and we're 1/11th of our defense, with our tackles in particular, we're going to be fine.
See, so tackles in particular, right? So again, Brian Kelly telling you he feels good about the edge. He acknowledges the tackles may not be a strength, but he doesn't think they're going to be a weakness either because they're finally getting good coaching. Bo Davis able to teach the technique that these poor guys have been denied for so long now. Here is Kelly 9 on the overall expectations for this new look defense.
This is all about how do they look against scripted plays and limited opportunities. And I know that our football team and the guys that we have feel really good about where they're at. But you got to go test yourself, against somebody else to really be able to answer those questions. I know going in that we're prepared defensively. Our guys are excited about playing for Blake. I know that they get the scheme very well. There's not a lot of confusion. There's not a lot of busts. There's guys that clearly understand what it is to play LSU football.
Well, here's to hoping that is true. If it is going to be true, one guy that's going to be key for both the defensive line and this defense overall is Jacoby and Guillory. Kelly feeling pretty positive about his senior leader.
He's been our best defensive tackle, our most consistent, starting with the tail end of last year, and that continued through the spring and into preseason camp. He's extremely strong, can hold the point, plays with great leverage and technique. He's really come along incredibly well in terms of the ability to use his hands and disengage and find the football. There's one thing to have strength, at the point of the attack, but if you can't find the football, okay. You just hold the point. What he's been able to do is use great strength, and now he's controlling the blocker and finding the football. What do I think we'll see? He's going to make a lot of tackles.
Wow.
And that's saying a lot for a defensive tackle.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not normal. I mean, again, Brian Kelly, as honest as any coach that you will cover, going out of his way to say that. And that is not normal for a DT. Normally more like the O-line clearing the way for the linebackers, but Kelly saying Guillory a playmaker in his own right. Does having a veteran, this is...
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Real quick, there's a couple things I wanted to hit on from some of that sound. Going back 2 answers, Blake Baker and not having, bust and not having guys kind of looking around, not wondering what's going on. Like, this is a team that is going to play a ton of cover 1 and a ton of cover 3 if they do what Blake Baker has done in the past, right? And sometimes for Matt House, NFL guy, he was doing a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was doing not exotic coverages, but coverages that had a little bit more moving parts. Like, cover 1's cover 1.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, we got Jimmys and Joes. You do too. Let's see which ones are better.
Yep.
All right? I like that. I hate quarters, and Blake's going to run some of it, but about 10% of the time. So I love that. I think it takes some of the confusion out when cover 1's your lead coverage, and last year at Missouri, 31.4% of the time that was their lead coverage. And then going back to Guillory and that answer, I love that. That's what I tell. So Jackson, my oldest son, who's a giant, he plays nose guard. And I tell him that all the time. I'm like, yeah, it's great to blow everything up and push your guy into the backfield, but if your head's down, you can't find the football, what are you really doing?
Yeah.
Right? Sure, you're affecting the play, but you need to affect and then make the play. And so, like, to hear Tanks doing those kind of things, it might sound like, duh, but it's not. Some defensive linemen, they are so worried about pressing the guard and kind of just ducking their head and driving him in the background. It's like, that's a portion of it. You can hold point, but also we need you to make a play. It's what made 2 years ago Mekhi Wingo so good. He was so good at pressing out the guard and then throwing the guard and making the tackle right at the line of scrimmage.
And it's what made Mason Smith so ineffective last year. He would just sit there and hand fight. It looked like he had stick him.
He was more worried about
jersey.
The individual battle and what it looked like on tape than going to make the actual play.
Well, he wouldn't shed the guy. He would just keep fighting him.
And I didn't see that from him 2 years ago. So again, who knows what in the hell was going on in that room?
Yeah.
Because even Mekhi didn't do it like he did, and we know that's Mekhi Wingo's skill set. So yes, that was a big problem. It's like, hey, we're doing all this individual fighting. We're doing the big fake.
Yeah, the big fake.
It's like, no, let's do that at the beginning and then get off and make the play.